Hi there, got a question for you. Is there a difference between keeping snakes as a keeper versus keeping snakes as a breeder? What about a big breeding operation versus a hobbyist breeder? Because there are some large operations out there that have some really great YouTube platforms. And I think there are some people maybe new to the hobby that look at those breeders and they make the mistake of using that as a model for how they should keep their snakes at home. But there are some pretty major differences. So let's talk about it. Wait, you already answered the question. So we're done with the video. What? You asked if there's a difference and then you said there was. So I think we can call it a day. Kent, you interrupted the logo. Sorry. You know, I'm making this video at the risk of having people set my comment section on fire with their hard and fast rules about how everyone should keep a snake. I've seen these arguments a lot on the internet. These big breeders are millionaires. They're just being greedy. If they can't keep their snakes like I do, they shouldn't be keeping them. And you know what? I hear you out there, mainly because you're typing in all caps, but there's some context that these people are missing with these arguments. So let's talk about the big breeders first. This is Tiger Lily, by the way. I think I forgot to mention that. So when I say big breeder, I'm talking about a large scale operation. They have employees, they have hundreds, if not thousands of snakes, especially during breeding season. And this is probably where your snake came from, a big breeder. It's where most people's snakes came from. If your snake didn't come from a big breeder, then chances are your snake's parents or grandparents came from a big breeder just a few years ago. So for a big breeding operation, their number one priority is the health of the animal and meeting their physical needs. And how do we make sure that we're keeping a whole bunch of snakes healthy? It's keeping them in an enclosure where we can quickly go through and see if the snake needs anything or not, see if there's any problems or not, and then move on to the next snake. What this means is a quarantine tub, basically, but for their whole life. Snakes that live in racks like this typically live a long, healthy life. Their basic needs are being met: security, food, water, and temps. We see snakes physically thriving in setups like these, but mental stimulation and enrichment adds a ton to an animal's quality of life. So this is important. Minimalistic setups are designed for large-scale animal management, not for pets. This is Bear. Let's talk about hobbyist breeders. A hobbyist breeder, to me, is someone who keeps their snakes usually at home, oftentimes in the basement or maybe an outbuilding, something like that. And they don't have 1,000 snakes. Their employees might be their kids when their kids are done with their homework. And they're able to interact with their snakes a little bit more, or provide them at least with a better quality of life. A hobbyist breeder can generally provide their snakes with more time and attention than a big breeder. They can give them mental stimulation. They can give them enrichment. They might still keep their snakes in a rack, like I do. I have a lot of snakes that are kept in racks, but you can enrich their racks. And that might be just a toilet paper roll, or it could be multiple things that are changed out each time you clean their enclosure, or once a week, or whatever you want, just to give the snake something a little bit different. I talk about this in a lot of my videos. Now, I'm in a position where my home is safe for my snakes to free roam, and I'm here a lot, so I can allow them to do that, which is great for them to get out of those tubs and get to roam around if they want to. Some don't choose to, you know, like Bear. Bear would rather stay in his hide. But whoever wants to can. Now, I'm not saying that you should necessarily do that. I realize that not everybody is set up for that. But the idea here is to do what you can for your snakes as far as their mental or physical stimulation and enrichment. And that will give your snake a much better quality of life than what the large breeders are able to provide for their snakes. Echo really wanted to come out, so I'm bringing her out, and we're going to do this real quick before I put her on the snake wall. So we're going to talk about keepers in a second, but first I want to thank our channel sponsors, Black Box Cages, Lane Labs, and the Royals Project. These are your discount codes. The cages are the ones that you see behind me. You can get frozen rodents and other frozen feeders from Lane Labs, and you can get awesome ball pythons from the Royals Project. Also, you know, there's a secret society over on patreon.com/greenroompythons that gets all kinds of extra perks and extra videos and such like that. It's called the Horde of Keepers Thundercrack. We haven't done the Thundercrack in a while, but I think it should be applied just by mention of the name. Despite the clandestine nature of this society, this is a complete list of the Horde of Keepers. Right now we're doing a bunch of meetups all around the country at different reptile expos that I'm going to be at. And I'm planning our next herping trip, which will be at some reptile-heavy corner of the United States. Sorry, Alaska. But you should come over and join the Horde. It's a good time. By the way, you can join the Green Room Pythons Patreon for free. At that level, you get a weekly update video from me. Any of the other levels, the paid levels, gets you into the horde of keepers, and that gets you access to all the other perks, including the ability to buy a snake from me. A lot of people message me inquiring on how they can buy a snake, and all those announcements of what clutches are available and such like that go directly to the horde. That's where they go. All right, that's that. Let me get this girl on the snake wall and let's get back to the video and we'll talk about keepers. Yeah, go, go, go. I got a video to shoot. All right, you on there? There you go. All right, lady, have a good time. This is Twyla. She's my little vanilla sunset girl that I hatched out this year. All right, now let's talk about a keeper that doesn't have a ton of snakes. I've had people message me before and they tell me that they have 3 snakes and they're wanting to get another one. So they want to move them all into a rack situation, and what type of rack do I recommend? Here's the thing. If you have your snakes in nice big cages, keep doing that. Don't move your snake into a rack just so that you can collect more snakes. Keeping your snakes in cages is a big level up from keeping them in tubs. And that may not be practical for breeders to do because of the number of snakes that they have to work with. But you as a keeper can certainly do it. And I'll tell you, like I always say, everyone keeps their animals a little bit differently, and that's okay. But keeping your snake in an enclosure where you can see them all the time gives you a much better relationship with that animal than just opening a tub once or twice a day. Here's another just logistical thing. A lot of times we see these big breeders talk about how they change water once a week. Well, as a small hobbyist breeder, I'm able to change my snakes' waters twice a week. You may have only a few snakes and you might be able to change their water once a day or once every 2 days, something like that, which is better for the snake. So, you know, there's a big difference in having a healthy collection versus all the nuances of raising a snake and developing a relationship with them. A big breeder will see their snake when they change their water or feed them. They know the important physical aspects about that snake, but there's no extended observation going on. They don't really know that animal very well, other than just like I said, the physical stuff. Is this animal healthy? A keeper who keeps their snake in a cage and can see them all the time can tell you all the patterns of that snake, everything that that snake does during the day, during different parts of the season, what they're like in their cage versus out of their cage, all kinds of stuff that these big breeders just don't have the time and space to be able to do. I thought we needed an extra pop of color, so this is DJ. This is my other new one from this year. So, you know, since I have been free roaming my snakes, that again, like we talked about before, that's a level that I don't expect everyone to do, but I just want to mention it, that's something else. I can observe my snakes together, the big females. I've been talking about that a lot in videos, especially shorts lately, about these big females and what they do together when they choose to be together. That's when they're free roaming, not in cages. But, I know their behaviors and what they tend to like to do, where they tend to like to go in the room, all kinds of stuff like that. Versus, what a big breeder can tell you about their snake is this one bites and that one's off food. So I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that big breeders have different priorities than keepers and different priorities than smaller breeders, Now, even though I breed some of my snakes, these are all my pets and they all have names. And when I introduce them, I don't say, this is my banana orange dream fire pied. I say, this is DJ. When I introduced Twyla here, I said what her morph is, that she's vanilla sunset, because I knew that everyone would ask. But you guys that watch my channel know that I almost never talk about their morph unless it's a video about morph. And I get a lot of questions whenever I don't list my snake's morphs, because everybody wants to know that stuff. Anyway, my point is that there's something emotionally connecting when we give an animal a name. And that's a big difference between a big breeder and a keeper, is that there's a deeper emotional connection with the individual snake for a keeper. And for a hobbyist breeder also, there's a deeper emotional connection than there would be for a big breeder with thousands of animals. We name them because we don't think of our animals as livestock, right? And by the way, I'm not saying that big breeders don't care about their animals or don't have any emotional connection. It's just that there is a deeper connection when you spend time and effort with an individual animal, and especially if you name them. So I appreciate the big breeders and even the hobbyist breeders that have YouTube channels where they're showing the amazing stuff that they're working on, all the incredible morph combos that are being created. And that's the aim of those videos, by the way. None of those breeders are saying, hey, if you buy a snake as a pet from me, you should keep them like I do. Nobody's saying that. So whether you're a keeper or a breeder, if you want to develop a better relationship with your animals, get to know them more, and allow your animals to have a better quality of life, little incremental changes, little incremental upgrades in their enrichment is the way to do it. And, you know, when you see these big breeders, appreciate what they're doing for the community and appreciate the snakes that they're producing. But a big breeder snake keeping situation is very different than ours. So that's all I got to say about that. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week.